All right, next item on the agenda is, we're moving to old business, life safety items, capital improvements, and is this the
Carrie
Carrie and Joe show? Come on up.
So the Board of Education, if you look at page 90 in the board packet, so we have 3 bullets, primary bullets that we'd like to discuss under this board agenda topic. The first, and I provided some copies of emails from the board's legal counsel who helped us with the construction manager's contract in relation to a guaranteed max price. The recommendation that Mr. Papanikolaou, Ms. Matlock, and myself are bringing forward to the board tonight is that the board consider that in regards to the GMP that we address it, that we move it up in the bidding timeline. So basically allow the CM to go out and put out the drawings for formal bid and then set our guaranteed max price after we receive the formal bid documents. This will allow for a couple of things. One, it will shorten our schedule by about 10 to 14 days. It will also make the biggest impact, I think, it will also allow us to be competitive with a lot of the other schoolwork that's going out to bid right now and hopefully get a better price. And the third thing is it will give a more realistic approach to the GMP and where we actually stand with the work and hard bids compared to doing estimates with subcontractors and not getting specific bids to the specific documents. I included the copy of the email. The primary question that I was sending to Mr. Berg, and I put it in bold, is will there be any additional exposure or risk for the district if we allowed the CM to provide us a GMP after the bid opening? And you can see his response from March 5th that he feels that the value engineering that has taken place, that this would allowing the GMP to set the GMP to be set after the bid opening would actually be more beneficial to the district. And he thinks it would be a valuable exercise.
Any questions on that?
I just, Carrie, what percentage complete will your drawings be for going out with them?
100.
That will be 100,
Mhm.
okay, with the options we talked about.
I think this
Yes.
is a no-brainer, Kevin.
I agree with it too. I think what's good about this is it gives us the harder, more down-to-earth cost instead of just trying to throw an estimate out there and everybody's covering everybody else, so.
And
Anybody-
let's Joe be more reasonable with us, too.
Yeah. Any other questions on this? Does anybody have any issues with us moving towards this type of thing? So I think, Kevin, the board's silence tells you that we should move ahead with it.
Okay, Joe, you need anything to add?
No, I think picking up minimum 2 weeks at this time of the year as far as bidding's concerned will definitely help.
So we're gonna try to get something in the paper this week. The tentative timeline, this is tentative obviously for the board, but we were talking about the official 10-day calendar for the bids would start on March 17th.
Sure, there'll be a mandatory pre-bid on March 20th at 1 o'clock, with the bid opening to follow April 6th at 1 o'clock,
Monday, April 6th at 1 o'clock.
And where does that take place?
here at the district office.
We'll probably
Bid docs
move
will, tentatively, bid docs will be available on March 17th, on or after, give or take, somewhere in there.
Joe, on your email, it shows 4/3/15.
Yeah, that was a preliminary bid
Okay.
timeline when I constructed that on February 27th.
Okay.
So, when we received the feedback from the district attorney, I think it was Friday into last week, I finalized this timeline and this ad for bid today, so.
All right, so do me a favor on this, so the board has it for their record and everything.
Sure.
Put it in hard. This is what the timeline's gonna be. So we can have that and send it out in this update.
I'll forward the PDF of the ad for bid.
Okay,
This is what's being posted in the paper.
all right.
Thanks, Joe.
Any questions on timeline? All right, the next item is,
We have, the next one is the preliminary cost estimate from Nicholas. This was requested by some of the board members. I had put up first draft of this in the Friday update, but it's in your packet. It provides Carrie's original numbers, Joe's hard numbers from February 12, and then the identified reduction items to offset the difference. And this was put in on Friday in the packet.
What page is that on?
Uh,
Lots of pages.
Did you say you added something to the packet?
No, it was put in the packet on when it was sent out. It's different from the one you got on the Friday update, but it's in the original packet is the more up to date. 96, Mike.
Okay.
Any questions on this? I know this is a read.
I have a question. Could you, Joe, explain? It's important to note that the 1.5 or 1,520,200 should be spread below or added to the total of the below DLA values in order to closely compare the two estimates. I still don't quite understand that number. Is it included already in these, or is it not included?
What page are you referencing?
What page are you on?
96, the very first page.
Okay.
Looking back on the DLA document, August 4th, taking in the contingency of 11%, and then also the contractor OH&P. So those are two values that have been taken into consideration on my baseline spreadsheet and those values. Within DLA's document, those aren't included in the values that are in parentheses within the breakdown that they had provided.
So
In order to get closer apples to apples, those need to be considered when comparing.
So say that again, the 1.5 million is what?
The 1.5 million should be the 824,700, the contractor overhead and profit,
Okay,
added to the 695,500, which is the construction contingency at approximately 11%, if it's really 11%.
So DLA had it in their sheet, but not added throughout their numbers.
Right, you just can't take the raw numbers within these parentheses within DLA's breakdown. You need to take in consideration those other two values, because those values are reflected within my baseline, if that makes sense.
You're not saying they equal. Are you saying they equal the 1.5?
I believe it's those two values.
I mean, the numbers you cited seem to add up.
695,500
Yeah, okay.
and 824,700.
Got it.
All right, any other questions on this?
then at the last page,
What page?
Which is the last page, John?
let's look.
It was
98.
very difficult
100.
to do an equal comparison.
Yeah.
So I did the best I could.
No, I appreciate this effort. Page 100, so it says, under the second note, there is another 1.2 million not reflected in the Nicholas value due to the fact it was not included with the DLA budget.
Right.
That's like miscellaneous stuff?
Well, those are items that,
Were not quantified at the time of that estimate. In
Right.
fact, what you're looking at are two very different estimates. One is actually a takeoff of all of the technical data in a 95% technical drawing set. The other one is based on a historical data, based upon a square footage number, for instance, like of the concessions building and so forth. That was just like $200 a square foot, because that's what we see as historically those types of buildings have been coming in at. It was just based on the conceptual concept of that.
So historical versus reality.
Actual takeoffs.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, then the last one is construction spreadsheet.
This is what Tim McGinnis had put together, and because we haven't received any formal payments or invoices yet, we just received our pencil copies, I believe, or we're going to be receiving the pencil copies for Robinette. So this was an example of a draft that Tim has been putting together in regards to trying to keep track of the cost of the construction project. And we wanted to get feedback from the board, and then we can go with the Finance Advisory Council and help us tweak it a little more. The zoo parking off to the far bottom left is not included. That is a totally separate project. That's something, as we working with the county and the zoo to try to look at surveying and things like that, some of the fees we've paid so far.
What about traffic studies? Where are those?
We haven't received any billings for traffic study at this
So
point.
these are just bills we've received?
This is all the bills we've paid out of the capital projects fund, yeah, this is
We're on
everything.
page 106, right?
Right, with the exception of Robinette, I put that in there, but we haven't received a final approved bill from,
And that's the
Sunday.
demolition?
yes.
I don't know if it's possible, you know, and I'm not quite certain the best way to do it, but something that would allow us to tie this to phase of the, obviously there's demolition, but clearly to tie it to phases, miscellaneous, maybe chronological. Again, I'm just throwing this out for consideration, so.
Like we want to do.
As opposed to just a tally, running tally.
Right, and once we open the bids, then we'll be able to incorporate
Yeah.
budget numbers in here.
So
Okay,
like
so-
right now, the demolition would be one phase.
That would be phase one.
Phase one, so then you can outline it. And what I would like to see is estimates versus actuals to see how we're tracking, you know what I mean? So like
versus
you
actual.
said, it's gonna cost this amount of money, but it came into this amount. Want to be able to look at that to see how we accuracy rate.
So I gave you a proposed last meeting ago, and I had in there budget. Where's the budget on this one to compare?
Well, as I said, the budget numbers really haven't been set yet because we haven't opened the bids yet.
So the only one we
Like, I
have.
don't
So
have-
we
we
had
don't have a
no,
budget for
we had no
DLA.
general, so we went forward with no budget.
We only have one bid, and that was demolition.
Yeah,
So
but-
that should have been applied.
So then we should have put that on there. Yeah.
We had a bid for 122,
And that's our difference.
and our allowance was 145.
We envisioned demolition would be X dollars based on what we had in this big elaborate cost numbers that we had.
Right, as I
That was
said,
our demolition budget.
when we opened the bids, I was gonna plug in all the budget numbers at that time.
Right, but we did the bid for demolition, so
Okay.
we gotta go back and add that to this.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, so like that's the phase one. So all of phase one should be in.
Can I ask a question, though, which I should have done on phase one? Tennis court's still there. The plan is to demolish the tennis court, isn't it?
Not in phase one,
It never was.
no.
But I mean, we're throwing around
Eventually.
numbers. We've often said demolition was phase one. Demolition light is phase one then. It doesn't include demolishing the
Yeah,
tennis
so
court.
we brought the bid forward for the board, and specifically it's spelled out in the bid, the visiting bleachers, the home bleachers, some tree removal,
Mhm.
and utility disconnection, and so that was phase one
Okay.
demolition bid.
And that.
And the board
that-
approved it, so I just gotta have Tim put that in.
And that amount for that bid was demolition other than the tennis court.
Correct.
Okay, so
It
there will
didn't
be.
tear up the track, it didn't tear up the turf, it was only the two bleachers.
Okay.
So it
Some
didn't
tree-
fall through the cracks, it's just
So
another
there's,
phase.
when, following up on Gary's thing, there's gonna be a demolition at phase 2 or 3, I don't know what
Right, I mean,
phase, maybe
tennis court's
2 and
considered
3.
site demo.
So, yeah, going back to page 96 was your analysis of the original DLA versus, so somewhere in there is demolition.
Well, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I'm looking for where, if we did a comparison.
There's an
So
excavation.
comparison number 9 is where where the value of 122,200 for building demolition, as well as then a site demo value is included. So
And then
it's
there's
all,
a-
it's all there.
There's another value though for tennis court removal.
Right, I mean, tennis court removal is site demo. I mean, it's fencing, asphalt, concrete. It's not building demolition, so phase one is primarily building and foundation demolition, so.
Okay.
So, just so we have it on camera, the original allowance for that was 145 from you, correct? It was $20,000 of it.
I don't recall the specific number, but
Okay.
it sounds right.
With this group, I remember. It was 145, 122 was the original bid, we came in at 128, that's not even, that's with some extra stuff that we paid for with Bluter, for the tree removal and doing the seismograph to help with the District 96. We did not use, well, we used a little bit of our allowance on the additional tree removal. So we need to update this, Tim, to show Nicholas's allowance, what the bid was for, and what the total came in at. Because what this wouldn't show after hearing that, in the Robinette bid that the Board of Education approved, it was 122 something.
Yeah, 122,800, I think is what I just read.
Right. The asbestos abatement's not part of Robinette's bid.
And neither is the tree removal was separate. too,
Right,
but-
and the hazard assessment's not part of Robinette's bid.
Mhm.
So those are expenses that are part of the demo that we had to get done. But, you know, maybe there's another column next to Robinette that what the bid was and what it came in. So
I
let
think
him,
that-
let him clean this up again, and then we could email it out to advisory council for a little advice, and we can bring it to the board again at the cow.
I think the key thing is, project number one of this project was demoing So here's the demolition, what Robin had bid in, here's extra costs added to it due to, that are explainable. This is what it costs, so this is what we can look at.
So Joe, going forward, March 24th, there's really not, there shouldn't be much that you or Carrie need to present to the Board of Education, correct?
No.
Because 100%, well, 95% were due Friday, we have those, that's a set that's already in the
Yes.
conference room. 100% is due March 16th.
Right.
March 17th will be the first official day of the bid window. And then, April 6th is the bid opening, and then we would probably bring some bids to the board for that first board meeting in April, correct?
Yes, which date is that?
Mary
Is that
Ann?
the following week, I think?
I think it's yes, it's the 13th or 14th.
Okay.
So let's,
I have a question regarding, I know we're still talking with the Village of Brookfield and ultimately where the water retention is gonna wind up and the ultimate solution on that. Where is that vault supposed to be built or put underground?
Underneath the tennis courts.
All right.
Not the old tennis courts, not the new.
Understood. So,
Well,
out of the bogeys in this project, is that potentially a big bogey from a cost standpoint that can potentially blow up on us?
Sure, I mean, it's like anything, we have to anticipate, the possibility of having some unforeseen situations pop up that will have a cost impact.
Right, but
So we will incorporate within the bid packages.
Okay.
An allowance, along with unit prices, to accommodate any unforeseen.
And what phase is that supposed to be built?
It's gonna be in the next bid phase 2.
So it's in
Bid phase 2 and 3 are being bid together.
No,
as
but
one.
when would the vault be done? First?
We
Yeah.
we need it to go first. The project doesn't start until we have the vault.
Okay.
Even though the vault is technically in phase 3, it will have a direct impact on phase 2 starting.
Correct.
So,
Why is that?
Because the water has to.
because we need to be able to control the water. We can't open that field up and not be able to control a significant amount of rainfall.
Okay.
Then we will have a serious problem. So, again, that storm trap
Another
is
swimming pool.
contingent on MWRD. Without MWRD permit, the storm trap doesn't get reviewed and approved and ultimately fabricated. If it doesn't get fabricated, it doesn't go in the ground. So it's important.
so if I'm a contractor bidding on that, how do I cover my?
We have to set up some criteria. We have to say, for bid purposes, figure X, Y, Z. Because we don't know if that's gonna change or not.
So if they figure X, Y, and Z, then you start digging that hole, and you find out that X and Y is not pertainable.
Well, you're talking about two different X, Ys, and Zs.
Well, we are.
Matt's
There's
talking about
there's two
unforeseen
different
below
sets of
grade
criteria that
issues.
we're gonna be setting up. One is to handle an unforeseen condition in the ground.
Okay,
Okay, so hopefully, the allowance that we set up within that bid package along with unit prices will handle and absorb that cost impact,
okay.
okay? The second part of it is just from a design standpoint. This is a plan and spec project. They're gonna submit a bid based on the plans and specs, nothing more, nothing less.
Okay.
So they're not gonna assume things. So if that plan and spec changes after bid award, based on MWRD review, there's gonna be a cost impact associated with that.
But we do have somewhat of a high degree of confidence that the design that Brookfield eventually, hopefully will approve any day now, the MWRD will approve because it's more generous, if that's a fair enough word to use, than what we were proposing in the original design that they said was okay.
Correct. We have a high degree of confidence, but there is always a chance, like Joe's saying, he's gotta prepare you for a chance.
I understand.
And that's fair.
All right, any other questions on this? So you know where, Tim, what we're looking for financial-wise, reporting-wise, and everything, so.
As far as money, I think we've asked tons of questions. How about timing? How's our timeline looking for the fall, let's say? I mean,
I remain optimistic for the fall. Again, it's hard to say. I mean, I'm in a project right now. We expect the second set of review comments from MWD to come back. We've been at it 4 months with them. It took 3.5 to get their first set of comments. That's it, ongoing right now.
We cannot start digging until we get it back.
We can't open the field up.
So you could start digging the vault.
No, because the civil engineer can't review the storm trap submittal until MWRD approves it.
Okay.
It's too risky, because if there is a change and the vault goes into fabrication, now we have a vault that's fabricated, that's now changing, and that's another can of worms. So I don't think we want that exposure.
So you're optimistic we'll have a facility for fall competition?
I'm optimistic. Again, I can't
No, I'm
commit
trying-
to I can't commit to a completion until we have the permitting in
Got
place.
some coaches sitting behind you,
So-
probably.
Yeah, big coaches.
So what you're saying is, what you're saying is that a lot of it rests on the turnaround of MWR.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're also saying too is that we've gone beyond what their initial reviews were, and what we're doing today, which gives us a little bit of higher confidence, but still, we still have to wait for their approval. Right?
Yeah, I don't know if MWRD's seen it yet, but
No, and that's what I was gonna say, I mean, MWRD has not seen it yet, other than a.
Well, with the initial, what they looked at before, which was a lower rate, they said no.
Well-
That's not how it works.
the village engineer in their review is completely separate from MWRD. It's two
Okay.
reviews.
Hold on a second. Matt is repeating what we were told at this meeting by Jason, that he presented some calculations to the
Correct.
MWRD, and they said based on that, this should be able to be approved.
They have not seen anything that's been redesigned.
Oh, no, I know.
Well, I understand that, but
The
the
concept.
redesign has more retention than the original design, which is what they worry about the most, right?
Yes, that is one of the aspects of the
Okay.
project.
So we're
that they
feeling
worry
good about the approval, but we're worried potentially about the timeline.
Well, the whole thing stems from, us getting approval from the village of Brookfield, which then in turn, then we can get approval from MWRD. So the longer that takes, the longer it takes.
So
us
in
to
other
get
words,
MWRD.
let's just say the formal MWRD submission and formal review doesn't start until the village signs off and says, we're okay with it.
Right.
And we're ready to go right after that sign off, which we're optimistic will come in the near future?
Well, we're ready to go to submit to MWRD at that point.
Right.
And then it goes through their process.
Got
Okay.
it.
And we
Okay.
don't, I mean, hopefully it's quick. We don't know.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I want to make a comment for
Okay.
the record here.
I forgot.
Going back, looks like the total cost of the storm trap is going to be roughly $1.1 million.
Are you on a specific page?
Probably 100 or 97.
I think the total cost of the trap was about 600,000.
Right, so I think we've already.
What's a storm work?
Oh,
It says-
are you referring to my comparison?
Yes.
Which comparison number?
So item 48, concrete slab, $100,000, and item 63 through 67, storm work,
Okay.
$978,000.
Because that's not just storm trap. Which comparison
Which
number?
comparison number?
Number two.
I'm sorry, number two.
Number two at the top of page 97.
So, again, I tried to line this up as best I could with the DLA document here. So I combined two line items, stadium flood mitigation as well as storm trap detention for parking, into one comparison. So essentially, that's not just storm trap. That's all storm-related work.
Right, so I guess there's like a $500,000 budget differential, and that can be related basically to unanticipated Brookfield, MWRD Brookfield requirements. And we
just
had
the
no idea of knowing.
evolution of the design in general, too, yes.
So we've identified that the elimination of the concrete pad was a savings of $100,000, the reduction in the vault. Originally, Joe had a higher sized vault compared to what Kerry originally had. So that's been reduced, so we're thinking there's a cost savings there, which then in turn would mean there'd be some less excavation and some things related to.
That 476 comes down.
Right.
Okay. I have one question more. If both of our engineers work together and come up with a solution, we have to wait for the full village board approval, or if their engineer signs off with what we propose and all that stuff like that, then can that go to MWRD then or not?
What they're doing is signing off on a concept of some sketches that we're piecemealing to them.
Okay.
And then they're also asking for an extensive amount of backup material to kind of justify the concept. And then once that is approved by them with a verbal, we will then do the hard drawings and hard calculations and submit that formally to them.
Okay.
Then they will approve that. and then we can go to MWRD.
That does not have to go to the village board, though.
It does not have to go to
That
a
was
board,
Matt's
it does not have to go
Is
to a
this
board.
the engineer saying, I agree with
Village-
everything?
As I understand it,
Village
we're on page with what they anticipate us including in the construction as far as stormwater detention is concerned. There's just one other issue that we're discussing at this point.
Okay.
So right now, the property out there is still usable? The
So-
track, the field?
With the 2 50-degree days that we've had, Joel, Kristen, Art, and myself met to this morning. And the construction fencing will remain up so that students can't go anywhere near that last lane of track and where that foundation was dug out from, even though it's been filled with rock. We also caution taped off and put some barricades up around where the visiting bleachers were. There's probably about two lanes of track that are usable, but there's missing pieces and things that have been torn up a little bit throughout, and the turf is usable. So we've set up a contingency plan to where Aramark will open a facility specific for a practice. Art's going to communicate what's acceptable for that facility, and then we're locking it down at a certain time so there's no public use of it.
So we got our safety all under control?
We think we addressed that today.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks again. Keep the good work up. I know this is hard, but there's a light. Trying to figure out where it is.